Thank y'all for coming and joining us for the Financial Aid Training Camp. This will be presented by Ann Peacock and Heather Willett. Just going to go through a couple housekeeping tips. There are microphones in all of the locations, so they are very sensitive. Please keep your voices to a minimum. If you have comments or questions, wait until after they're asked. And we will be recording this session, so it will be available on our HR Blackboard site. It'll probably take me about a week to get it up, but there are instructions on the staff development, on the staff announcements page as to how to locate this video. So if anyone, your colleagues, anybody you know of that wasn't able to make it today, you can let them know that it is being recorded and they can access it at a later time. And if you have any questions, wait until Ann or Heather ask for those or raise your hand, and we will go ahead and get started. So I will turn it over to Heather Willett.
Thank you. For those who do not know me, I'm Heather Willett. I'm the Dean of Student Support Services, and although I do not work every day touching financial aid, I'm very involved, and we do work very closely. So I thank you for allowing us to come and talk to you a little bit. So the agenda today is pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about what is financial aid, why should I care, and there are great reasons why all of us should care on campus. The difference between college policies and financial aid policies, I think sometimes that is confusing for folks, so we want to touch on that. And then we're going to talk about implications that affect financial aid. And I'm sure you run into a lot of this when you're talking to students or situations come up and you go, oh my gosh, I don't know how that's going to affect. I know what's going to happen academically. How's it going to affect financial aid? So we're going to talk about all of those items. So much to do and so little time. I think we all feel like this. We're all paperwork overload, and we are definitely that way in financial aid. So we can definitely relate. All right, so financial aid. Why should I care? There are great reasons on that. Let us talk just a minute about what is financial aid. Financial aid is any grant, scholarship, loan, or employment that is offered to assist students meet their college expenses. Now, I want to note right now that loans are not available at Central Carolina Community College. That is a decision that has been made by the college, and the trustees have backed us on this because our programs like Pell Grant, Work Study, those programs can become in trouble. We could actually lose those programs based on default rate. Unfortunately, they do not do credit checks when it comes to doing student loans. So the college has decided we are not going to participate in these programs because we just can't take the chance of having the possibility of losing Pell Grant. If we lost Pell Grant, this college would have to close. So that's in there. We want you to know that that is something that is part of financial aid, and you may have students talk to you about loans, but we do not offer those here, and that's why. So why should we care? There's a lot of impacts here. Enrollment. Well, we know students cannot come to school without assistance. I mean, our students are usually not the highest economically. They do need help, so we definitely have to have that to even get them into college. To retain them, they've got to be able to stay in college, and that's another thing. A lot of our students, especially in programs that maybe they can't work, programs are going to limit their working hours. Financial aid is crucial for those students. It's really crucial for those. Other aid is tied to this, Work Study and the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, which is SEOG. Those programs are also related to this, so you want to keep that in mind. Our Work Study program helps a lot of our faculty and staff throughout campus, and without this program, we wouldn't make it. Debt. Our students can get a debt. Our college actually gets a debt, and how does that work? We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And accreditation. It's really important that we go through everything that we need to meet the rules that make us approved for accreditation for financial aid. There's a lot involved, and folks really do not understand. They want to know about our programs. They want to know about our accrediting agency. They want to know about the hours in our programs. So there's a lot there that we have to do behind the scenes for us to stay approved for the financial aid programs, and it's all tied to that. So that's just a brief overlook of that. All right, financial aid resources. Now this is talking about what we've dispersed here at Central Carolina Community College, and I think it's a pretty impressive chart here to show that a lot of aid comes through here. And we know that it has grown, and you might be going, hey, well, 13 doesn't look as much as last year. It's because we're not finished yet. We're still going. So from 2009, the amount that we dispersed was $8,836,657 to students. 2010 was $9,770,079. 2011 was $9,402,696. 2012, $9,939,146. And so far, this year, we have dispersed $9,265,932. And we're not done, because summer also falls under our school year. So we will definitely hit at our highest or go higher. I believe we will probably exceed our maximum. So what does this mean to you? Where's this money coming from? Well, I think we all know, but this is really, I think, an eye-opening screen. We're the ones that pay for this. Our taxpayers pay for financial aid, and I think it's a great thing that we do, but it's amazing how much it does cost. In 2011-12, more than $141.9 billion in financial aid helped 15 million students. That is a huge amount. It's the second largest budget to the Department of Defense. That says a lot. It says a lot. Yeah, there we're talking about our Pell Grant, accounted for more than 8.6 million. So, but we're the ones paying, folks, so it is important to us too. Okay, institutional responsibility. We do have responsibility as an institution, and notice I didn't say financial aid office has a responsibility. I said the institution has responsibility, and I think sometimes that becomes a gray area that folks do not realize how much we all play a part in making sure that we're meeting financial aid regulation. Everyone has a piece in this, from the faculty to the registrar to the admissions, financial aid office, business office. We all are a part of that. And I want to make sure folks realize the pieces that each part plays. In accountability, they look at attendance policy. And do y'all know the attendance policy here at the college? We do have an attendance policy. So it's got a little gray area in it, but you're supposed to drop students if they've not attended classes without any kind of notification within 2 weeks. So we do have somewhat of an attendance policy. Are we all adhering to that? I would say probably not everyone. We do get rosters in where students quit attending months before, and they wait till the end to report that student's no longer attending. We're not in compliance as a college at that point. We've not reported the information correctly, and the student has now incurred a larger debt possibly because we're just finding out and doing that refund calculation. And what happens if a student does not, if they have a debt, actually the college is having to pay the feds back, and then we have to collect it from the students, so the college is incurring a debt. And I don't know if that's something that folks know. Withdrawal information, as we just talked about, if you hold off on reporting those withdrawals, that really does put the student into a situation and the college. Satisfactory academic progress. We're having to look at several things there. This is all federally mandated. We have to look at their grades, and the requirement is at least a 2.0, cumulative GPA. It used to be per term, it's cumulative. They have to do a completion rate. The completion rate is 67% cumulatively. They have to complete that number of credit hours, and then they have to attend courses. So a student who never attends a class, this is very important that you know, that stops financial aid. They are not eligible for financial aid if they did not attend that class. So a never attend means they are not eligible. How does that affect us? Well, here's what happens. We're allowing students to purchase books, charge their tuition, all of those things up front. Because we're telling them, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to believe that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. So we're going to let you do these things. Then they never attend courses. They've charged tuition, books, all of those things. The college is left holding the bag. At that point, we have to try to collect from the students. And I'm sure you can imagine that can be tough. It also stops the student at that point because they have a debt with the college, then they cannot get a transcript. And we run into that. And that is one piece that we have that helps us to kind of get money back. But a lot of times we're having to go and get money from their taxes, and that's not fun. We don't want to do that. So attendance is very important, and reporting attendance to us is very important. All of this is going to play into when we have a program review and an audit. The feds can come in and check everything. They're going to look at all of these pieces. So again, it shows where financial aid is not alone. Our office is not alone in the financial aid process. We do need all of those pieces to make it work. Now, audits, the state will do an audit as well, but the program review will come from the feds. We have been very fortunate. We've not had a program review that I know of during the time that I've been here or before, but that could change at any point. They're hitting North Carolina pretty hard right now, so we want to be prepared, and we want to show that our college, our institution, is doing what needs to be done to meet these policies. Oh, I'm turning it over to Miss Ann now.
Thank you very much. I also want to welcome you to this class, and I hope that y'all get something out of it, because there is a lot more than what we can offer in this one session. But what I want to talk about today is the differences between what Central Carolina Community College will allow a student to do and the restrictions that we have to uphold in the financial aid office. And there's quite a few. I think the first one that students do not understand, and some advisors and faculty as well, is that the institution will allow a student to apply and accept them into more than one major at a time during the same time period. So they may be taking classes for 2 or 3 different majors and thinking they're good. Well, they are. But with financial aid, they will only allow us to award students based on one program at a time. They can do a change of major from term to term or when they complete a certificate or diploma or an associate's degree. But if they are registered and accepted here under 2 or 3 programs, like our students like to do, financial aid puts a halt. And we're supposed to look at classes within that one program of study to award their financial aid and disperse. So that is a main key. Also, we kind of have open registration during the semester from session to session, because we have a 16-week, 12-week, a late start 12-week, a second 8-week, and DMAs and telecommunication classes that start all throughout the semester. With financial aid, we have to look at what is required in that major during that session or the semester. We're going to talk about disbursement later. But right now, the students are supposed to take classes and register for classes within one major at a time with financial aid. I know I'm saying it over and over and over, but it's very important. Also, what's allowed is we give the student, if a situation arises, and there's many situations, and the student talks with the instructor may elect to do an incomplete, which allows the student a little bit more time to get that class completed. Well, financial aid treats an I, an incomplete, as an F at the end of the term, the current term that the student is in. Now, most students, it's not going to hurt, but there are many students that are right on the niche. I believe Heather talked a little bit about satisfactory academic progress a while ago, that one class, that one I, will knock them into a bad SAP status for financial aid. And or, if they're already on warning it can knock them into not eligible for financial aid for the next term. And if they're on an appeal that we have approved for financial aid, we call that, well, that they're on an appeal. So we're going to let them continue if they meet certain criteria. Every student on an appeal has to complete every class that they register for by drop-out period. And an I again is treated as an F with financial aid. So if they do not get that I changed to a passing grade before the next term begins, they will not be eligible for financial aid. So there's a lot of discrepancies right there. Also, I know some people are not aware about what financial aid will cover as a repeat. And that can happen in several different ways. I was here last semester, I failed it, I need to retake it. Or I made a D and I want an A. And I was right there for some reason. Financial aid allows repeats if they fail it or withdraw from it. But SAC will catch them eventually. But if they pass the class with a grade, a D, C, B, A, financial aid will allow them to repeat that class one time and receive financial aid for that second class. And this, I think, the reason they did that is I was here 10 years ago, and I was in accounting, and I took that whatever class. And now I'm back, and I need some skills updated. Because you know some classes change from year to year. It seems like from semester to semester sometimes. But I need to really reskill in that class. That, I believe, is why they allow this, but that's just my personal opinion. But keep in mind, if they've taken it 3 times and they have a passing grade, then financial aid will not cover that class again. And there's other classes it doesn't pay for, I don't believe I put in here, which is like audits, credit by exam. They really have to be seated either in an online session class or sitting there in a seat. One of the other things I want to talk about is what we call in financial aid rolling registration, because we do have several registration timeframes, which we call drop-out. But y'all need to be aware that if Ann Peacock comes into college and pre-registers for, we'll just use the summer session as an example, it might not be a great one, but we're going to use it. And I'm registered for the whole term of summer for 6 hours. But for some reason, the second part of the summer session, I've got 6 more classes to make me full-time because that's the way we're offering them. That's still giving me full-time status. Okay? And I start classes and I'm doing really well. But I want to throw another class in there during the second open enrollment period. I can. But it won't increase my financial aid, 1, because I'm full-time. And 2, because if I add after that first registration period in financial aid, those hours are frozen for financial aid purposes. So another example is if I come in and I only register for 6 hours for the summer session, but during the second session, I want to register for 1 more class to make me 3/4 time. I can, but financial aid will not be adjusted. At that point, that means I'm going to have to pay that tuition out of my pocket, the books and supplies as well, because my financial aid is not going to be adjusted because I didn't pre-register for or register for it in that first registration period that I enrolled in. Okay. All right. We talked a little bit about NAs, and we are repeating this for several different reasons. This is a federal regulation that if a student registers for a class and then does not show up for that class, and we treat it as a no-show or a never attend, financial aid will not cover that class or classes. So again, if a student registers for 12 hours but doesn't show up but for 6, we can only award them. We have to change their aid to half-time status at that point. So 1, we need them as quickly as y'all can get them to us, but on time. We are running into a lot of issues where we've overpaid a student because we didn't receive the NA until 2 months later at the end of the semester. And federally, we are required to turn this in within 30 days of notification. When the institution, wherever that is aware that that student is a no-show or never attend. Same thing for the reverse effect. If you put an enter date for whatever reason, maybe you just, I've been an adjunct faculty member, so it's 11 o'clock at night, you're keying them in, and you keyed an E for Ann Peacock, but she never showed. And 2 weeks later, you're like, she's never shown up. And you go back and you change it. We need to know, because at that point in time, when the rosters have already been past due for 2 weeks or 14 weeks or however many weeks it is, we've probably overpaid the student and we need to adjust it. Because you said they've entered, but they're really a no-show, so they're really being awarded either more money than they're supposed to, or we've told the business office they're good because they're here, and they're really not. Okay, reinstating students. A student comes to you and says, I'm going to drop your class, and we go through all the rigmarole to get them withdrawn. And then they come back 2 weeks later and say, I think I can catch up. I give you a really bad sob story. You really feel for that student. Maybe you even go as far as looking at the transcript and they're very good and you think they can catch up with the class. So you reinstate them for whatever reason. We have to know. Financial aid has to be notified as well, whether it's by you, the faculty, students, a quick email, whether you're getting into the system so when Jamie runs those reports we get, we can update our system. Have to know their statuses all the time because we're making adjustments all throughout the semester depending on what they're registered for. So it makes a lot of sense, but it's very involved. And now I get to talk about the financial aid time limits. Again, I want to reiterate, these are federally mandated. We have no control over these. If a student comes to college and they've been here 10 years, we have to look at their cumulative transcript. The federal government will allow them 150% of time to complete a degree. Make it simple. If 100 hours is needed or required to complete a degree, they're going to give them 150 hours. Okay, why? Remedials, they've changed their major, they've completed a certificate or diploma, and they want another one. There's several reasons why. Or they've taken, the same class 3 times. So they allow them, to me, an extensive amount of leeway. So once they've reached that 150% of time, we're going to send them a letter saying, well, the federal regulations state this, you're no longer eligible for financial aid. However, if you have extenuating circumstances, you can appeal. And we have a wonderful form that they can fill out, and it goes to a committee, and they decide if a student can be approved to continue or not. In addition to that, financial aid, the federal regulations allow us to subtract up to 30 credit hours of remedial classes. So if that is one of the things that are hindering them on the 150% maximum time frame, we have the right to go in and take that out, and we do. But if they go over 30 credit hours of remedials, and we have many that do, during that semester, if their 12 hours include another remedial class, we're going to have to bump them down to 3/4 time or half time, whatever their particular situation is. They can take the class. They can charge that tuition towards their financial aid and possibly even books and supplies, but they will not be treated as a full-time student unless they add another class and take that remedial class on top of 12 credit hours. They cannot appeal that process. That's it. The federal government's very strict, no more than 30 credit hours. Then a couple years ago, they threw in a lifetime eligibility used stipulation. And this is lifetime per student, every student, nationwide, because it's federal. They're going to cut them off after 12 full-time semesters, which is an equivalent to 6 years of financial aid. This cannot be appealed. If they like one more class, one more credit hour, we have nothing, we can't do anything with financial aid to help them with federal Pell, SEOG, work study, and the North Carolina grants. The only other avenue they will have will be scholarships. Doesn't matter if they've changed their major, it doesn't matter if they were here 20 years ago, they're done with financial aid.
So after all we've talked about, we want to talk about how can you help students be successful. And I think you probably have heard a lot of things that you can do just through our discussion. But here are the big points that we want to make sure that you walk away with today. The first thing is going to be the 10% rosters. We want to make sure that they are turned in on time. This is so important because we cannot give a student a refund. We can't even determine where they are until we have these rosters in. Ms. Ann will send out an email telling folks when to have that turned in, and I will tell you that we have had quite an issue getting these in on time. They have to be accurate and they have to be complete. We do receive rosters that are incomplete. They'll have blanks on them, different things like that, so you need to make sure that they are turned in on time and accurate and complete. We want to keep those times where we have someone reported as enrolled and later on find out they're never attend to a very minimum. We know that things happen, but please try to check the accuracy and make sure that we're getting the right information so that we are paying students as much as possible the correct amounts. And we don't want them to incur a debt because of this either. Also, our students are needy. We do have needy students. And this holds up their refunds, and we do have students that come in and they're in dire straits. And our hands are tied. We have to have this. It is regulation. And we feel really bad for the students, but we're relying on your help to get this up to date and turned in on time. Withdrawals, as we talked about how important that is to do that in a timely manner. We do need that done and make sure that we are in our requirements of turning in this information within 30 days. We may still have that money held, but we would like to at least be in regulation that we're doing it on time. Grade rosters. We've got to have those turned in accurately and complete. Again, the same as the 10% rosters. When we get these grade rosters, here's what's happening. We are having to do our satisfactory academic progress calculations. And it's unfortunately not something that's totally done with Datatel. We do have to do some looking at this information to make sure everything is correct. And if we are even missing one roster, it cannot calculate. And what happens is that we have to hold off from calculating those things until we have all the grades in. And that delays us telling a student who may be on probation whether or not they can get financial aid next semester. And we're going to have, just so you know, this is hopefully going to only happen this year, and next year maybe we won't have as much time out of school. But this summer it's going to be really difficult because, and we do not have as many students receiving financial aid, so that will be a help in the summer. But this summer, because we are having grades turned in literally, I believe, on a Thursday, Friday, and we're starting class on Monday, it is impossible for us to be able to inform a student, okay, you're not going to be eligible, you are going to be eligible. It really is putting us in a bind. And that's not any of our faults, it's the weather. But that is the kind of thing, we do have to have the time to do it. And I don't know that folks realize sometimes how much time it takes in the background to do these processes. Advising. We want to make sure students are advised properly, that they're in the right classes. We do have students that come in and they find out later on, oh, I wasn't supposed to be in this class, or I wasn't eligible to take this class. Now what am I going to do? And as you heard Ms. Ann talk about the freeze process, that really does put us in a bind as to how to help the student. So advising is key here. We've got to make sure students are in the right classes. Okay. If they have any specific questions, we would like for you to please refer them to our office. Each student is different. Everyone has their own situation. And there are so many pieces, as you've heard today, that can impact that student's financial aid status that it's really difficult for you guys, and we don't want you to have to do that. We want you to send them to us. Make sure that they come meet with us. I had a student the other day who informed Mr. Hall about talking to a recruiter. And some information came out and they were really confused, and the information was about financial aid. And it turns out the information wasn't really correct. So we want to avoid those students getting in those situations, so please send them to us. Now, financial aid does have to be reapplied for every academic year. And note, the academic year does run from fall through summer. We do award fall and spring. If they're full-time fall and spring, they're not gonna get summer A, but we do have students that are not full-time or transfer in spring. So we will have students that get 8 in the summer. They do have to reapply. Right now, we're in that reapplication process for fall. Students are doing that now. The process, I think, is even better than before because they can connect directly to the IRS, and that link will hopefully help them get their information done accurately and will maybe prevent them from having selection for additional paperwork. So this is the FAFSA website, and we don't want you to have to go on there and do it with the student, but if you do have a student who needs help with the FAFSA, please send them to our office and we'll get them with one of our specialists to sit down with them and help them out. Now that you know everything that we know, we want you to come help us. And we want you to help us any way you can in whatever capacity is available. But if anyone wants to come and work with us, Richard. Rory said yes. All right, now this is your time. This is your time to ask questions. I know you've heard a lot, but we do want to have questions about anything that you've encountered, anything you heard today. Go ahead. I know Rory's going to ask a question.
Okay, so you had said about timely withdrawals. Was that just in terms of faculty withdrawing them? Because my thought process was that it didn't matter if they withdrew today or if they waited until the end of the W period. Because I want them, they know, especially for the core classes that they're going to have to repeat, I would rather them wait it out as long as they can to get the material to make it easier when they do repeat it.
So you're saying they're still attending the class?
Yes. They know they're not going to pass, but I'm still trying to get them to get any of the information that they can.
Well, the piece I can
But I
tell
don't
you,
know.
the piece that's going to help you there is what we're looking for when we have folks that withdraw from everything. What
Okay.
we're required to look at is what was their last day of attendance.
Okay.
And so you're telling me that student is still attending the
They're
class?
still attending, and
It doesn't affect
It doesn't
us.
affect
Okay.
us because we're looking at that
that's
last
what I
day of
wanted to make
attendance.
sure.
What we're trying to say here is we don't want someone to stop attending class in September and you wait to withdraw them in November. That puts us out of the requirements.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I wanted to double check.
Good
that
question.
I was doing.
Right.
And then my other one was, I've been telling students, if you've done your taxes, go ahead and do your FAFSA. Is there any type of delay that they need to know about before they can do the import?
Yes.
How much of a delay?
They suggest that you, after you file your taxes,
Uh-huh.
that you give it a 2-week window.
Okay.
Now that's if they file it electronically. If they file it by paper, and I don't know that many folks.
Is that
do
even available anymore?
It is available, and we do have some people that will still want to do things by paper. It's a much longer process if that's the case. It's 4 to 6 weeks before it's gonna show up. But yeah, we tell them to wait that window. And I guess they can file it, but it's gonna come back as not legal.
Right. I mean, it'll tell them immediately once they hit the IRS retrieval
That it's not ready.
It'll say, you
Yeah.
can't find it. And then that scares people, because I just did it yesterday.
Well, yeah, I had same thing. I just applied online. Can I register now?
Right, so we all encounter those issues.
Yeah.
In this electronic world, we all think everything is instantaneous, or our kids think that it's instantaneous, but it's not quite.
Piggybacking on that question, Rory, if a student or parent, if they're dependent, have filed their taxes and they owe the federal government, and they do it with either electronic or paper, and they're selected for verification, and we have to have a copy of their tax transcript, for whatever reason, which does happen from time to time, until that debt is paid to the federal government, they will not release that tax transcript from the IRS.
You probably will not know that part of it, but just in case if
I
someone.
mean, who knows what questions will arise.
Right.
Trust me, I've been amazed at the questions they've asked me, and I'm like, yeah, financially it's that way.
There you go.
Good,
And
that's what we
we
want you to do. What else?
Those were, would you believe it? Those were my only two. You might want to catch her, she might be ready to fall over.
down. Very good. They were good questions, though. Very good questions.
But I come to you guys when I have any questions, so
That's what we want.
Any
you've tolerated me all year, so.
Or concern, right, concerns, great thing. If you just want to know why is it this way, let's talk to you. We'll be glad to explain.
I think you guys do a great job with answering our questions as faculty and then the students' questions, because you kind of have to deal with all of us. Because the students come to us and we come to you and you're like, well, just send the student and we'll take care of it. But you do a great job at explaining things to the students and to us so we can help the students understand, because it does become difficult to understand. Because we just think it should be different than it really is. And so it's the little intricacies that you guys know so well that it makes it great when we do actually utilize you guys properly by sending a student to you instead of us trying to muddle through it, because we used to try to do that. Not good.
And I think that there are some rules that the feds have that we really don't agree with, but we are bound. So we try to get through it the best we can and help the student the best we can. And I think we have some really good staff in financial aid. We've made a lot of improvements, I would say, and we're awarding more than ever. I run numbers for, I don't run, actually Colleen Johnson's wonderful in our office. She will run numbers for me to give to Mr. Coyle for PC. And we are far exceeding our awards even from last year to this year. We are way ahead. So even since we've come in, we made changes and we're still growing. And unfortunately, Datatel sometimes doesn't do what we want it to do. And I know everyone deals with that. But thank y'all for bearing with us and helping us and referring students and calling us when you have a question. It does make a difference because we are a team. This college, we're all a team. The word was institutional. It's all of us.
I get asked a lot whether or not they will get financial aid in the summer.
So
And I do what Lisa said. I just say, go to the experts because it's federal rules that, we have to follow, and I don't even want to try to guess, but I do get asked that a lot because in business, our students work. And so they usually don't want to or prefer not to, or academically they know they want to pass, so they're not going to take 6 classes a semester, but they don't want to be here for 4 years for a 2-year degree. So I'm trying to figure out, how can I take a full load? Maybe I can go in the summer, pick up something. So
if they're using a full load in the fall and the spring, there is no summer aid. If they're part-time fall and spring, there could be summer aid for them. And there's a piece there, the state grants, no matter what, will not allow us to use it in the summer, but it's the Pell Grant that will. So if they're part-time fall or spring and they're using Pell Grant, they may have some summer aid. But you're doing exactly what we want you to do. We're wanting them to come in and let us talk to them because summer is such a different beast compared to the rest of the year. When we do an award letter, unless, if it's in the beginning of the year, we just do fall and spring, and we do not even mention summer. And if they start in the spring, of course, at that point, we can do spring and summer, 2 full semesters. But it is something that we do want you to send them to us. You're doing exactly what we want.
12 credit hours for you is a full load, but for us, it's not.
Right, and that's a good point. I'm glad you said that, because in the summer, they do not allow us to change that. It's 12 credit hours is full-time for the whole year, regardless. But I think sometimes people get so hooked on that 12.
Mm-hmm.
I have told some students before, well, if you're only taking 9, you'll have a piece left for summer. And it's like, relief comes over them. You're kidding me, greatness. Well, look, actually, that helps me. So, I don't know in your program if that would work, but it does help some.
As soon as I remember it, I'll let you know. Oh, last summer, when we registered them, if they were financially, we had to send them over to you so that you could keep a list. Are we doing that this year too?
At this time, yes.
Okay.
Basically,
All I wanted to hear was yes.
they can either come over physically or they can email their intent.
Okay.
not phone calls.
But it wasn't, like, nothing's changed that you're gonna get any kind of list of,
Well, and
it's still up to the student to notify you that they're.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and we were hoping to do it a little bit differently, but frankly, the change in the weather has adjusted how we're gonna be able to do it anyway, because we can't even evaluate their eligibility in time. This summer is gonna be a little different in a lot of respects, so. Okay. Any other questions? Well, if anyone has questions for us after this, please contact Ann Peacock or myself. We'll be glad to help you. And I don't know if there's anything else. We're good? We're good?
Thank
No
you
more
very
questions?
much.
I'm gonna stop the presentation.
Thank you.